So, as I said, so tonight we're going to look at how to become what colleges want. And this is not about becoming someone that you aren't. This is about being aware as students enter high school about what are those trends in college admissions. What are admissions officers looking at when your file hits their desk? And being aware of that can really be a motivator for students and for us as parents in guiding our children to know what we really need to keep a close eye on while we are in high school. So that's what we're going to be looking at tonight. So we're going to close our first poll. It looks like about 63% of you have an 11th grader, 26% of you have a 10th grader, and 11% of you have ninth graders. So that's about what we expect usually in this presentation. And regardless of what grade you're in, this can be great, or what grade your child's in, this can be great information. So as you are thinking about college, there really is this idea that you have to educate yourself. You know, I often liken it to when I'm going on vacation. And so when I go on vacation, I do a lot of research about what are the things we want to do, what's the weather like, where are great places to stay, to eat. We do our homework. And, you know, we might spend several thousand, maybe $10,000 on our family vacation. Um, and you're going to spend far, far, far more than that on college. So it does deserve the attention of doing your homework and starting your homework early. As you're doing your homework, that should drive you to be very strategic about this journey and where you're headed with it. So as you're thinking about it, I always say you should have at the forefront of your mind what is the freshman profile. And so what do I mean by freshman profile? Freshman profile, and it can change from year to year, is the 50th percentile of the previous year's admitted freshman class. Not the kids who applied, not the kids who enrolled, but the kids who got in, all of them that were accepted. And so knowing that really helps you keep your eye on what you need to have GPA. GPA wise and ACT, SAT wise. I have class rank in there. Most high schools that the students attend that we work with no longer track class rank, but a few do. And if your school does and it's listed on the transcript, then colleges will take a look at that. No worries if your high school doesn't track it. If that information is not made available to the college, then there is no penalty to the student. That's a question I get a lot. There's no penalty to the student if that is not provided. They will simply look at the data that is provided. So where do you find the freshman profile? Great question. That was our first question that came in tonight, so everybody be sure that you're using that question feature. So the freshman profile, it's published sometimes on the school's website. You can ask when you're doing college visits. There are websites, you know, College Board has a search engine tool on it. They often have that listed. And then we actually have a class, a workshop seminar that we teach that's called College Selection Seminar, and we show you a lot of tools that are out there on the web, how to find the kind of information. Will these slides be available later? What we're going to do is make this recording available later, and it will be on our College Bound blog on our website. So you can go there and you can send your friends over who maybe did not have the opportunity to join us tonight, although we have a pretty big crowd considering that it is a big football night. So thanks for taking the time. Why do you want to keep an eye on this? So if your child is at or above the freshman profile for the classes that you're visiting or intend to apply to, that would look favorable in terms of getting in. The farther below you are from those averages, the less likely it is that your student is going to get into that school. Oftentimes, parents, you come to us and you say, we need to find schools where we're going to get really robust merit-based scholarships. And so to to get that, if it's going to be an academic-based, merit-based scholarship, you really want to be about the 75th or 80th percentile of the students who were admitted. So, and then you might be qualifying for also to take part of their honors program as well. So those are things to keep in mind. So that is probably the most crucial piece of data as you're doing your search. Oh, trying to get us. There we go. Okay, so what are some current trends? So these are just a couple slides on the trends, and then we're going to look at specifically what the colleges are looking at. So cost of college is still skyrocketing. You know, I went to high school in the 80s, in the early to mid 80s, and we didn't even think about some of the stuff that we have to think about now because college just was very affordable. And I think all of us gasp at the cost of college. And so because of that, we have to be more strategic about doing our homework and how we do our visits and even how we're applying and our test prep and all of that. College has more applicants than ever, and that really is because of number 3, online applications increased. So what happened was when I started LEAP in 1999, college applications were still, hard copies mailed to the colleges. And back then, on average, kids were maybe applying to about 3 colleges or so. Now, the average student applies to around 7 or so colleges. It has gone up. It varies greatly. There are some kids that'll stick to the 3, and there are crazy stories in the media every year about kids who are applying to, 15 or 20 colleges even. And as they're applying to 15 or 20 colleges, why is that? It's because it's way easier with things like the Common App. So you complete one application and you have less work to do and you submit everything online. So that's why the number of applicants has really gone up. Early actions, very popular. So in the last 3 to 4 years, schools, for those of you local to Ohio, I know we have people on from all over the United States, but for those of you local to Ohio, Ohio State, University of Cincinnati, Miami University, Ohio University, those are schools who move towards this idea of if you want full consideration for the merit scholarships that are available at our school, you must apply by the early action deadline. So for Ohio State, that's November 1st. For University of Cincinnati, Miami University, Ohio University, that is December 1st. And if you apply after those dates, you can still apply and get in, but you are not going to be considered for the full spectrum of scholarships. And I, as a parent who am paying for 3 children to go to college to get post-secondary ed, I want them to get as much merit-based money as possible. So of course we want to meet those early action deadlines. Many of you go into this search thinking that you have to stay focused on public schools in your state. So I know we have many states represented on this call tonight. And with that in mind, I say to all of you, you can look across state lines when you want to look at private schools that offer just very generous aid. I have a freshman in college, one of my oldest, and I can tell you that the private schools that he applied to, they all were as affordable or more affordable than the in-state price that I would have expected at Publix. There are also some Publix that are giving very, very generous aid and across state lines. So you want to look at those as well. You might be surprised by some of this. So what are some of the effects of these trends? With so many applicants, we see a lot of colleges offering you a place on the wait list, but I can pull data after data after data to show you that wait lists are not hopeful. You often see 1,300 kids offered a spot on the wait list with 0 getting in off the wait list. So do not count on that. Colleges are tracking something called demonstrated interest, and if a school tracks demonstrated interest, you better demonstrate it, and we're going to talk about how to do that a little bit later in tonight's presentation. Colleges are seeking full paying tuitions because not only is the cost of college going up for us as consumers, but the cost of running colleges is very expensive as well. We already talked about public universities admitting more out of state, and some colleges giving tuition or 4-year graduation guarantees. I know University of Dayton here in Ohio, they tell you that your scholarships, your merit scholarships, will keep pace with any increases in tuition they have over 4 years. So that can be a way to keep your eye on getting in and out in 4 years. So as we're doing this, we want to really start to look at when that file that your student completes hits the desk of the admissions officer. And whose desk does it hit? I get asked that question a lot. Generally speaking, and it can vary slightly, but generally speaking, it will first be examined by the admissions rep that is assigned to your region. So if you are in state and it's a large school, there might be several reps for your state, might be broken into several different regions. If you are out of state, then your rep may have a number of states in your region. But that person, and they'll be the person that will work college fairs in your area. I just posted last week about the National Association for College Admissions Counselors, of which I'm a member. They have national college fairs, and this spring in Columbus, Ohio, they will be having a college fair. I believe it's in early April, if I remember that date correctly. And they'll be back in Cincinnati and Indianapolis in the fall. So when they file hits that person's desk, who you're going to meet at the college fair or when they come to visit your local high school, the number one factor to that individual is going to be, what are your grades? And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth. And then number two, what are your standardized test scores? The reason the rest of the list has bullet points is it tends to vary by school what they're going to consider important. And that's something that we explore in another in the college selection seminar that I already talked about. So keep that in mind. We can find out, look through the data to find out, okay, school A maybe ranks demonstrated interest in front of the writing sample, but school B might reverse that. So these can come in any order. Question, does not filling out the FAFSA form hurt your chances of merit aid? Good question. So that varies by college. There are some colleges that will not grant merit aid if you do not complete the FAFSA. That is not most, but there are some. So that is a question that when you are applying to that school, you need to ask the college if it is necessary to complete the FAFSA in order to be considered for the full spectrum of merit aid. So great question. One of the schools that my son applied to, he would not have been considered for any merit aid had we not completed the FAFSA, so we did. So you absolutely want to know that, because I get a lot of clients who say, we're not going to qualify for any need-based aid, so what's the point in filling out the FAFSA? Well, if the college requires it for you to be able to consider for merit-based aid, then you're certainly going to want to go ahead and fill it out. So really great question. So what we're going to do is, there's some other things down here, your interview, your subject test, alumni relation, are you a legacy, things like that. Like at University of Michigan, being a legacy is a really big deal. And I've seen that be true of my students who have applied there. So you want to know some of that, but really the mainstays are our bullet points and our numbered points, and that's what we're going to look at this evening. So first, let's go ahead and tackle grades. So with grades, I get the question often because we have a very robust test prep company. Just in the Cincinnati area alone, we prep 1,300 students a year on the ACT and the SAT. And so I will frequently get calls from 9th grade parents or early 10th grade parents that'll say, hey, can we start our test prep? And I say, let's put the brakes on and look at how we're starting high school, get really excellent study habits, keep that GPA up, because grades actually are going to be more important than test scores in the end. So work on that. Be really strategic about your 4-year high school plan. I've got a great story for you guys. There was a client of mine who This student freshman year, we were looking at not only what they were going to register for sophomore year, because we do that, we give input for families, and that student, instead of taking by year, we were going to go ahead and map out based on what was currently offered at his high school, what he was going to take in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. As a freshman, he absolutely loved um, band and Spanish. Saw himself going through Spanish 4 and taking band, but knew that career-wise he'd probably be somewhere in the field of engineering. As we mapped everything out, his school offered a lot in the way of engineering, and we saw that he was actually going to have to um, go ahead and drop band after his freshman year and finish Spanish with Spanish 3 after his sophomore year, um, instead of seeing those all the way through, to open up taking the appropriate engineering and math and science classes to better position him with the colleges. So, if you're not thinking strategically about your grades, because those classes that he then ended up taking his junior and senior year that were AP or AP or dual credit courses for College Credit Plus here in Ohio carried a weighted GPA, and that made a difference in his grades as well. Taking appropriately rigorous courses is really important, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that on January 23rd. We have another free webinar, Understanding PSAT Scores. That was The PSAT scores came out on December the 12th into your child's PSAT account if they took it. Most juniors took it, some sophomores took it. So I would go ahead and be sure that you attend that. That can give you a peek into if your child is up for AP. There was a kid that we worked with, quite a while ago now, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, who went to a good local high school here in Cincinnati. Had close to a 4.0 but had never taken an honors course in his life. He had almost a 4.0 and did not get into Ohio State about 8 years ago. And I see a lot of kids get into Ohio State that don't have a 4.0. So what was the difference? Ohio State said that they are looking for students who challenge themselves and take appropriately rigorous courses. So taking all college prep level courses and never challenging himself worked against him. So you really need to work in rigor. Rigor matters with colleges. And then, being sure that you keep your overall GPA up. So we just had a question come in, and I actually answer it here on this next slide. So somebody just asked, do colleges look at weighted or unweighted GPA? So colleges would prefer to look at unweighted GPA. That's because on a 4.0 scale, grades are all created equal. The problem is high schools, you could talk to 5 different high schools and they may have 5 different ways of weighing weighted and unweighted grades. So one school might give a full point, so be on a 5-point scale for AP classes and a 0.5 for honors classes. Another school might only give a 0.5 and they may give the same weight to both AP and honors classes. So it varies greatly. So colleges want to compare apples to apples, and the only way to do that is with unweighted GPA. However, some of your high schools are only putting weighted GPA on their transcript. So first thing you want to understand is ask your high school. On the transcript that will be sent to the colleges, they usually give you a copy of your transcript in the fall of your senior year when you come back, and they have your senior meeting about the process of requesting transcripts and recommendation letters and things like that. We're going to talk a little bit more about recommendations letters in a little bit. But ask your high school, and you can even ask them now, what gets published on the transcript, weighted or unweighted? Now, as you do your college visits, you want to ask, does the college take whatever's published, or are they going to recalculate? So if your high school only publishes weighted, some high schools publish both unweighted and weighted, would that college then, if you only had weighted, go in there and take the weight out and recalculate it back to a 4.0 scale? Some of them will do that. So Some colleges will even go as far as, look at the bottom bullet point there, they will recalculate your GPA based on what the core courses are, GPA are only. So that is English, math, science, social studies, and foreign languages. And they'll take out if you took a PE class or you took, any of the arts classes that you took, any of your electives, they would take that out. So you need to ask that when you're visiting the colleges, because then you want to know what GPA are they looking at when they look at me. So great question and super important one. How you approach what this 4-year college or 4-year high school plan is also can help you maximize your course load. So first of all, you're getting in rigor. You're getting in as many classes, good classes, as possible, and you may even earn some college credit while you're in high school through College Credit Plus or AP courses. Another thing that can impact the transcript as well is what happens with high school credit classes that you take in the 8th grade. Some high schools will, so that's a great option if you're on the call. I know we don't have any 8th grade parents on tonight, at least according to our poll, but if you have younger children and you're on the call tonight, taking things like Algebra 1 or your health class when you're in the 8th grade can open up space in the high school schedule to take things that look rigorous and good to the colleges. So it also might open the door for getting those college credit courses for AP and College Credit Plus in the juniors and senior year. So, but you got to be ready for college level work. In the end, then, that can honestly save you as a parent money on college. So, super important. So, as we're closing out factor number 1, grades, keep in mind that no matter where you apply, your GPA and the classes that got you that GPA, did you have appropriate rigor, are the most important factor in whether you're getting into college or not. So, super important. Now, number 2. ACT and the SAT. So the ACT announced last March they are bringing back what is the pre-ACT. A lot of the local high schools, our Cincinnati area, are now giving the pre-ACT to their sophomores. PSAT is given to most juniors, or you have the option to take them, and these are practice. They're great. So when you contact LEAP about test prep, and we hope that you'll choose us for test prep. If you want tips on how to choose a test prep company, we do have a flyer that you can email us for a copy of. But when we are formulating a plan, because Sherry Elmore, our ACT/SAT director, will give anybody a free analysis of their information and a plan for when they should test and what type of prep they should do. ACT or SAT, individual or class, things like that. She looks at factor number 1, what are your grades? But factor number 2, any pre-ACT and PSAT scores that you have, because they do predict how you're going to perform on the ACT and the SAT. So super important. These tests are obviously taken in the junior and senior years of high school for college entrance. And we give, if you've not seen it, we give an entire ACT/SAT overview. We're actually giving it at a local high school this week and again in February. And we'll do it as a webinar soon. But if you want more individual input, go ahead and contact Sherry by calling our office or emailing her. You can just use the info@leaprogram.com and she will get back to you. Now, along with your ACT and your SAT test scores, there are these things called SAT subject tests. They're 1-hour tests given on every SAT date with the exception of the March SAT date. Typically, why do I have all of these Ivy League pennants up? It is only highly selective schools that require them. In some cases, the schools recommend them. If they do recommend but not require, we say that you absolutely should go ahead and take them. Then you really want to get these in either in, there's a early May SAT date. There's the first Saturday in June. So first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, last Saturday in August, or first Saturday, usually the first, but sometimes the second Saturday in October are SAT dates. If you take them in May or June, then you're probably well prepared. And how do you choose which ones you should take? For schools that require them, you typically need two. And we say take the corresponding test to what AP class that you just finished. We don't do a lot of SAT subject tests, and the reason is your AP teacher probably has done a great job already getting you ready for that test, your SAT subject test, as well as your AP test. So that's probably about all the prep you need. So if you're going to do that, we really prefer May or June of the junior year. Now, let's say that you don't decide until the fall of your senior year that you're applying to a school that requires them. You can still do them at the end of August or 1st of October and be on time. So these are also the schools that are usually requiring the essay portion of the ACT, which really brings us to what we're going to call our next factor, which is the writing sample for the for college. Now, this is going to show up in many different ways. So on the ACT and the SAT, there's this optional writing test. And for those of you that are in the state of Ohio, when your junior takes the state ACT or SAT at your local high school in March or April, it will not include the writing portion of the test. It is an option on any national test date. And if you follow us at all, you know that LEAP recommends that you test at least twice, because 57% of students nationally raise their ACT and SAT scores on a second attempt, and 83.4% of LEAP students raise their score on a second attempt. So when you take it on your own, whether it's before or after the state test date, you should include that writing test. You know, we say that if you want to keep every college option open to you, take the essay test at least once. Where else will they look at your writing samples? On the Common App, there is what's called the personal statements, 650-word personal statement, and most colleges use that are using the Common App. In March of every year, the essay prompts are announced. Our recommendation is that you write your essays for your college applications in June or July. So you're not taking away from the focus of schoolwork, and you're getting them finished before college applications actually go live on August the 1st, because those prompts are announced every March. The colleges may look at it by, they have another essay that you have to write for their scholarships, or some colleges even have additional essays for their application. And finally, some colleges, when you go for orientation, will even have you write an essay for a college placement test. Now, there's a movement towards using ACT and SAT writing scores or English scores for that, so they may not have the college placement test. The bottom line is that colleges are looking at how you write, and that means when we are in high school, we have to become a great writer. And I hear the moans and groans of every math science student out there who, you know, can hardly stand to read a book and write a paper. There's a lot of you out there, but you will read more and write more in college than you can ever comprehend. And the best time to hone your writing skills is early in the process, 9th, 10th, you know, polish it in 11th grade. So by the time you're doing all of these writing samples for college, you have become a proficient writer. It's just not something that you can get away from. Question that comes in, it says, you recommend preparing a writing sample June, July of summer before senior year? Yes. So the prompts, actually the Common App uses a 2-year cycle for prompts. So the graduating class of 2017, this year's seniors, was on the 2nd year of the 2-year cycle. So if you have a junior and you're on the call, the new prompts, which I guarantee you some of them will be the same because that's always the case, they will be announced in March this spring. Wait until June or July, and if you're local to, you know, LEAP in Columbus or Cincinnati, we actually offer workshops and tutoring for this. If you are one of our national clients, we offer virtual virtual essay prepped. So, oh, I should back up. Somebody just said, what is a prompt? A prompt would be the question. Um, so when I say prompt, I mean for Common App, there were 5 different prompts or questions or statements last year. So, you know, one of them might be, what is the biggest obstacle you've overcome and how did it change you? That would be an example of a prompt. So a student then would write an essay of 650 words maximum, um, to that end to address that prompt. So there will probably be about 5 or 6 different prompts. You will write those, and they take time. I'll tell you what, this is the hardest part of the application process for seniors who are heading into the process. It's not filling out the application, it is writing the essay. And you're going to want to do those in June or July so that once the application's live, August 1st, you can go ahead and just focus on the application itself. So yes, right before the senior year. Now, obviously you don't want to do these before your junior year. You don't want to start them before you're ready to do college applications because A, the prompts may change, B, the student, you know, themselves, they're still changing, they're still growing. Do students choose one prompt or do they answer them all? Great question. You only choose one. So on the personal statement, which is the main part of the Common App, then you will have 5 or 6 choices and you choose one prompt and you write about that prompt. Now, some colleges, so for instance, the University of Cincinnati had on their supplemental application an additional 250-word short essay. Ohio State and Miami had nothing. But then I work with students all the time who are applying to, you know, highly selective colleges, and, you know, a student at the applying to the University of Chicago or Georgetown has 2, you know, maybe 2 more on top of that, 2 more or maybe even 3 more sometimes. So per college. So they really can add up. So great questions that you guys are asking. There has been a slight movement and trend towards colleges using alternate writing samples. So send in a video, send in a short series of essays where you know, in 100 words you answer something. Or giving a personality test. That's something that Rose Holman in Indiana at engineering school was doing. So you might see some twists on that. Don't be surprised by it. But for the most part, you're going to be writing essays. So now, the next one, demonstrated interest, and I actually bumped this up on our list last year. It's even becoming stronger. This is something that 10 years ago we would not have had a conversation about. It would not even be part of, it would not at all be part of this conversation or what a college is looking at. So do you remember at the beginning of this conversation, this presentation, I said to you that when colleges put their applications online and started using the Common App or their own application, that students skyrocketed in the number of colleges that they were applying to. So for decades and decades, colleges knew, because remember, colleges are a business, colleges knew that if, let's just say they have 100 seats that they need to fill with their freshman class, we're going to keep it simple. And so they need 100 people to actually enroll. And colleges knew for years that if they, for instance, say, okay, if we have 200 applicants, so double the number that we need to enroll, we know, because we have formulas that show us that if we accept 150 of our 200 applicants, that we should hit our sweet spot of having 100 people go ahead and actually enroll and pay to go here. When college applications moved online and students started applying to 7 or 8 colleges instead of 3 colleges, that changed those formulas and they could no longer rely on that. And it blew the budget, quite frankly, of many colleges. So what ended up happening was they realized that students who demonstrate interest in their college before they apply are more likely to enroll. So here's the way this works. If you have a college that tracks demonstrated interest, They will look, and they've got one seat left, and they have two students. Student A visited campus, sent in some questions during the year to ask about the school, maybe follows them on Facebook or Twitter. Um, they have been interacting. They know that that student's more likely to enroll if accepted than student B, our stealth applicant, who the college knew nothing of, the quote stealth applicant, that really is what they call them, a student that they know nothing of until they actually submitted an application or their ACT and their SAT scores, things like that. So when they realize that, some colleges have put a lot of money into tracking when, how often, and in what manner students are interacting with them before they apply. So, so what they do is, like the University of Michigan, they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of applicants. They put money into this. University of Dayton, they told me they will not accept a student who is a stealth applicant. They will not. Um, another school, Rollins College down in Florida. I have a student who's a senior that's applying there, and I called on behalf of this student because the student was actually had some trouble during high school, and his grades were not quite what they should be, but had excellent ACT scores up in the 30s. And so I called down there. I said, hey, this student demonstrated interest once by visiting. Would it behoove them to visit again and demonstrate interest again? And they said yes. University of Dayton told me all you need to do is demonstrate interest once. We don't track it beyond the first demonstration of interest. So this varies greatly by school. But for those of you, again, local to Ohio, because it's the majority of you on the call tonight, Ohio State, UC, Miami, OU, Bowling Green, Toledo, none of those schools are tracking your demonstrated interest. So I tell kids, because it's the student's job, this is not the parent's job, we cannot do this for our kids. We can coach them on how to do it, but the interaction has to come from them. And believe me, these professionals know if you're the parent demonstrating interest and it's not your kid. So, and it doesn't count if it's you. We don't get to go to college again as much as I would like to go to college again when I see how great my son's dorm and campus is. So it's their job. So encourage them to do things like visit, go interact with the admissions rep when they come visit their high school, or go to the college fair, follow them on Twitter, email a question to their admissions rep, things like that. I often get asked, my child just took the PSAT scores came out, now all of a sudden we're getting all sorts of correspondence, email and mail from the colleges. Do I have to respond to all of this? Well, you do. If it's a school you're interested in and they want you to demonstrate interest, then yes, you need to. If it's a school that does not track it, not a big deal if you throw it out. You can be a stealth applicant. So I've got a question that was just sent in. It said, how do you know which schools track demonstrated interest information? So that is something we teach you how to do in our college selection seminar that for everybody who's part of our Practical Approach to College PAC program, which the person who just asked this question just joined our PAC program. We teach that in the college selection seminar, or the rest of you can go ahead and do that as a one-time a la carte seminar as well. So we just offered that in December. We'll offer it again in February. We do not have a date for that yet, but that is important information for you to know. Okay, moving away from demonstrated interest, talking now more about who is a student and what are they pursuing. So this is what your activities or your resume look like. So, I get questions all the time about what should we be focusing on? What should we be doing? And you want to be yourself, okay? So what are some tips around how you decide where to invest your time? So being well-rounded, but by keeping your grades up, because remember, I ranked this number 5 because this really moves down on the list and grades are number 1. So you don't ever sacrifice grades for anything else. when you're pursuing this, you actually, I had a student who thought that it only was what they did at school, and we were working on putting together the student's actual resume, and the student only had on there what he had done at school. And I said, no, it counts as work, volunteerism, anything inside or out of school. What are you doing outside of the 8 or so hours that you're at school each day? That's what is your resume. Um, it might seem silly to put your resume together and write it out now, but I encourage you to do so. I've written a blog on this, but I'll just highlight for you real quick. By putting it together, it is a gigantic time saver in the senior year. Some college applications actually allow students to upload a resume instead of typing in all of their activities. If you if you are typing in your activities, for instance, on the Common App, you're only allowed to choose 10 activities that you did in high school to put on your application. But let me give you a for instance. The University of Cincinnati looks at the 10 that you choose to put on the Common App, but then they allow you to also upload a resume. So if you've pursued more than 10 or you've gotten more than 5 awards or honors, which is what you're limited to put on the Common App, and there are like 700 schools on the Common App right now, so you're going to be applying to some school that's on the Common App. So you get 5 awards, you get 10 activities. Let's say you have more than 5 awards that you've received, or you have more than 10 activities. So in the case of the University of Cincinnati, they allow you to upload your resume, and let's say you pursued 20 different things, they would see all of them. So you get to show more of what you did, you get to save time. The students who get the best recommendation letters are the students who actually give a resume with all of their activities to their recommenders in the fall of their senior year. So there are a lot of great reasons to actually put together a resume and write it now. You're going to be very busy your spring of your junior year with college visits, ACT, SAT testing, summertime, writing your essays, starting your application, fall, finishing applications, requesting recommendation letters and transcripts, doing maybe some final college visits. So I encourage everybody to put your actual resume together now, so all you're doing is adding to it instead of starting from scratch later. I've got 2 rules, and these are the most important thing. When you're picking what you're going to focus on, think about having some longevity. So colleges don't want to see you do a group of things freshman year, drop all of them, start a whole new group of things, activities sophomore year, drop them, a whole new group of activities junior year, drop them, stick with some of them. That doesn't mean if you're pursuing something that you just feel like isn't you, that you shouldn't drop it. I had a student who had always done soccer and sports, and in high school, freshman year, started running cross country, but just was feeling called to participate in music, and ended up after a freshman year, she dropped all sports, tried out for an ensemble, made the honors ensemble, got to travel, got to compete, and had a robust resume full of really great musical activities and awards and otherwise. So it's got to be about who you are, but then she stuck with those things throughout high school. Opportunities for leadership are not going to come until junior and senior year usually, so that's part of why we need to stick with it. So let me give you a quick leadership story. I had a student who she's currently a sophomore at Ohio State. I started working with her sophomore year of high school, and towards the end of her sophomore year of high school, she attended our resume workshop and then wanted me to meet with me privately to look at her resume. And she ended up with an ACT in the 30s, 4.0 student, and that's not every student, and she was really blessed academically and wanted to be a doctor. And I said, you really, when I look at this, you're lacking leadership. And I said, let's brainstorm how you could initiate something maybe and get some leadership. So what we hit on was she was going to start a film club at her school and be the president of the film club. So initiative, she started a club. Leadership, she was the president of the club. then they decided to make a film that the school then used showing, and this is a girl who went to a private Catholic school in the Dayton area. And they made a film to show how a private Catholic education could be within reach for families who are financially marginalized, and how that is possible through scholarships and whatnot. Because of that, this white upper middle class student that I worked with is now on a diversity scholarship, full ride diversity scholarship at Ohio State University because of the impact her leadership had on a diverse population, not because she herself embodies diversity. She doesn't at all. So really great story of how that whole thing came together. Had she not put together her resume, she wouldn't have been critically thinking about what am I missing here that I need to fill in, and then being purposeful about your pursuits. You know, do you, if you know you want to be a teacher, then are you doing something that's related to education or working with children that's on your resume? Does what you're doing speak to who you want to become, what you want to do for the next 40 years after college? Question that just got sent in. Is there a standard recommendation form, or is one needed for each college? We're going to actually talk about recommendation letters in just a second. So good question. Keep in mind, though, when you're looking for merit money and you're looking for activities, you know, merit money from colleges is not just your academics that we talked about in numbers 1 and 2, which was GPA and test scores. Merit can be money for anything outside of academics also that the school wants. So that can be athletics, that can be your musical talent, that could be your leadership. So any of those could bring you merit money if that's something that the college is looking for. So, you know, just ask yourself, what is my resume saying about who I am? You are painting a picture on your application through what classes you've taken, what program you're applying to, what activities you've pursued, what your recommendation letters say about you. You are painting a picture of you so they know who you're getting or who they are getting. And so when you're thinking about having purpose in your pursuits and what you're pursuing, does that add to the picture of who you want to be in the eyes of the college and who you are truly? We already talked a lot through that. We do have a resume workshop for those of you in the Cincinnati area. Oops, and that's an and sign that I was changing that to 7 at 7 p.m. in Mason on January 25th. And that allows you to actually put together your resume and learn, and that's a student-only workshop, what needs to be on there. And again, that's for families who are part of our practical approach to college. That's included, but anybody's able to register for it as an a la carte item. So that's coming up soon. You know, as we're thinking through activities, it's only January and it's been very cold the last week, although it's getting ready to warm up a little bit. You really need to start thinking about summer. If you plan to do any college experiences or, you know, engineering camps or anything like that, I know somebody, I need to reply to somebody's email who's on the call tonight who asked me about engineering camps and things like that. Those application deadlines are usually anywhere from January through March. Those applications typically are going to close out by the end of March. There are a few exceptions to that, but that's just why I tell you, really think about how you're going to use this next summer, whether it's your summer leading into your senior year, your summer leading into your junior year, or your sophomore year. How are you adding to your resume and having a summer of purpose? Lastly on our list is your recommendation letters. And honestly, when we get to this point of the list, you know, number 5 and 6, very interchangeable. But sometimes a college will say that they hold recommendation letters in very high esteem. It's very important, but others will say it's not as important. So I want to say to the students, and if your student's not on with you, I encourage students to build positive adult relationships, because besides you as a parent, this is an adult voice that cares about them and can be encouraging them as well. Some of you, that second to last one can feel really tough because you go to a huge high school and your counselor maybe has 600 or 700 students on their load. How do you become your counselor's best friend? Pop your head in, ask questions. Parents, you can contact them at any time to ask questions. Um, Keep in touch with your past teachers. When you get recommendation letters, these letters will come from teachers who know you as a junior or a senior. If a student's favorite teacher ever was their freshman English teacher, but they've never talked to that teacher again, they haven't kept in touch, your student is going to be very different as a senior than they were as a freshman. They grow up, they mature, they change, they have experiences. And the colleges want to know who you are coming to them, not who you were. So it's important to build these relationships and keep in touch with these people. Now, so the question that got sent in, going back to there, is there a standard recommendation form or is one needed for each college? So there, on the Common App, it will vary because it varies by college. So some colleges will say we require your counselor. Some of them will say we don't need the counselor because we understand that there's a lot of schools with huge counselor to teacher or counselor to student ratios. So they might want 2 teachers. Some may not require any, but they can allow you to have X number. When you get into the application, you're going to see it'll say, you know, 1 teacher required, but you may have up to 3, maybe. It'll vary by college how many they'll allow you to have. Don't feel like you have to max it out, but you definitely need to meet the minimum. If you want to pick more, that's fine. I usually say if that person's going to show a different facet of who you are, something new that they're not going to hear from someone else, then go ahead and add them. Some colleges will have a form where you literally are rating the student, and some of them just have the individual write a letter. Most of them are, going back to the question that Bonnie asked, most of them are just simply writing a letter. So this is where it comes in that the students who get the best letters are the ones that the teacher knows well, or the student has gone ahead and they have provided a resume. When I look back at the letters that my son received from his teachers, his best letter was somebody who had been a coach of his and had been a teacher. But what amazed me was even though she had coached him for 6 years and knew him fairly well, she wove into her letter things about his volunteerism that she really didn't know about until she had his resume. And so a teacher who's going to take the time to write a really great letter, so you got to think about who's writing the letter too, that individual will weave those things in with finesse. And so, you know, you need to think about who you're asking. But I would insist that you all have a resume. And I'm going to tell you this, I do not like the format of the resume in Naviance. There's one in there. You can do that one. I had my own son do that one, but he had a much nicer and robust resume that he put together on his own. So recommendation letters typically are going to actually be a letter in the recommender's own words, but sometimes it can be a questionnaire that you have to submit. So keep that in mind. So with that, you know, those are the main pieces that the schools are going to be looking at when it comes to who the student is. I don't see that we have any more questions, but I'm going to give people a second to send them in if they do have more. In the meantime, we are posting every single day tips, things in the news, things that we've written on Facebook, Twitter. So I encourage you to follow us there. If you want an individualized test prep plan, then please contact Sherry Elmore, our ACT/SAT director, at info@leaprogram.com, and she will reply to you with what if she thinks your child should take the ACT or the SAT, when they should test, and what kind of prep they should do. We will be helping many students complete their college applications, anywhere from essays to activities lists to resumes. to the actual applications themselves starting this summer. So if you want help with that, we are here to help. It was really great to have everybody on tonight. Please stay in touch, and we hope to see many of you on January the 23rd of 2017, which is another Monday night at 7:30, 2 weeks from now, as we look at how to read your PSAT score reports and what action steps students and parents should take from the information they have available to them. So thank you once again, and roll tide on this game tonight. Thank you. Bye-bye.